Appreciate that welcome. I don't know if I should say anything else. I should say thank you very much. But my wife Joyce and me. You know, my wife Joyce and I, as we were coming up today, I said, you know, we're here today, and I represent 33 towns. These are friends among friends. Lakewood has always been very good to me, and been very good to the county for the last 33 years. And let's talk about the needs of really Lakewood. It's our key county, it's our premier county, as far as not only growth, but as far as support, but as far as your contributions of what you give us. Now, once or twice a year, we get beat up a little bit by saying, there are too many people, there's too much growth in Lakewood. And I turn around to the editorial board and say, wait a minute. Well, my people want to have children in Lakewood. They want to live in Ocean County. They like the quality of life in Ocean County. And that's basically what it comes down to. And they like Lakewood. And Lakewood's been very, very supportive to me continuously. We have an excellent relationship not only with the mayor, but with your town council. Sometimes we have some problems with that fellow over there by the name of Bobby Singer, who's like a member of our family continuously. We have one problem with Bob Singer. He's trying to get into the family will all the time. Every time I say he wants a little percentage over there. But I see my friends over here from the Lakewood Scoop, and every time we go someplace, I don't know how they do it. They always make us look good. They always get a picture in there. And before I came today, I called up Mark Siegel and Craig. I said, look, you know, I'm going to come over today. Make sure you don't change the meeting and everything else. It's very important. Because I don't want to rush. I want to spend some time with you and say, really, we appreciate what you do for us. And you know what the county is. I mean, as far as what we do, we have some literature. But I think the important thing is that relationship, as Minaj mentioned before, that if there is a situation, you pick up the phone 24/7, let us know what the story is, and you know what makes me feel good? We're able to work with you. And we're able to work with the people in Lakewood, and the governing body has been outstanding. Of all 33 towns, I think we probably have the best relationship with the governing body that's in Lakewood. When I came in, I'm looking for my friend Steve Langford, who's a character, and a funny guy. He's not here right now. But Mike DeLea, we go back. Let's go, Mike DeLea. Now, Michael, how many years back do we go?
The 80s.
In the 80s. That's correct.
Is that the 1880s or the 1980s?
1880s is when I got the phone.
1980s. So the name, we know Mike and we know everyone else here. And again, you know what we represent. I don't have to go on for a long time. Yesterday, every time I went to speak yesterday, they were telling me there's a football game on. Well, today is no football game, but I'm here to enjoy your company, see what you need. We're all on a first-name basis. But Lakewood is a great town. And what I like about Lakewood, as you know, I'm an educator for about 40 years. It's the priority you have always given to young people and education. That's very, very important. Because the future is going to be the young people in Ocean County. And you realize, as I do, the most important natural resource we will ever have is only one thing, is our children. And the main thing today, the most upsetting thing, and it has to do with the county to a certain extent, and I met today with the sheriff, as you know, Mike Mastroni, a great guy, is every time I put on TV, ISIS. And you see that, and you say to yourself, how can the President of the United States of America tell anyone, tell the world, we have no plan in place? Well, I want you to know today that we had a meeting with the prosecutor and with the sheriff, that no matter what happens in Ocean County, we have a plan working with the local police chiefs and all emergency management agencies because it's too important to us. And no one has to tell us what our job is. We know what the job is. And what is our job? To protect the welfare. To protect the welfare and safety of all the people in Ocean County. And for anyone to say they don't realize that it's a problem, that something's wrong someplace. So again, you know our priority continuously and our relationship that we've had continuously. And when I come here, it's fun. And my wife, and you see, we hug and kiss and shake hands and everything else because we know the feelings that you have for your people and our people and your children, and we're all on the same, same page. There's no question about it. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking today. I said basically I want to hear what else is going on. Now, here's what's difficult with my race is one thing: 33 towns. I have half the town with Tom MacArthur, that's on a sponge on the other side. I have about 30% with another congressman running, Chris Smith, in a different section, which is over here, if you're lucky. And then down south, I have Lo Bianco. So I have 3, Lo Bianco. Biondo, Lo Biondo. Those Italian names get me.
The only reason why I know Joe is I served with him in the assembly.
Nice guy, great guy. But we have all 3 great people that are running for us. And again, the district is a little cut up every time we go back and forth. We have members of the family, of course, of Jeff Bell in the back. And Jeff is working real hard. And this year can make a big difference as far as our congressional races, as far as not only to keep what we have, but there's a strong possibility we can pick up some U.S. Senate seats in the United States, which I think we're going to do so. People are not happy with the direction that the United States is going in, and changes will be made at the top, but not in Ocean County. So again, I'd just like to thank you again. I look forward to going back 3 years from today with my wife and tell you some more war stories, if I can. But does anyone have any questions about what's going on in the county or which direction we're going into? And again, every time I come over here, I get one good word, and that is we're all friends, we all work together, and I've been very lucky to have Lakewood in part of Ocean County, Mr. Singer, that's what I was involved to. And Bob Singer and I, we talk a lot, but we joke a lot, we tell some stories. But if there's an issue or any kind of problem, Bob calls up, and usually at my house, says, Joe, we got to fix this problem, we got to take care of it. And before we get into that, I say, Bob, it's done. He says, how do you know it's done? I said, because if you want something, if it's for Lakewood, it will be done, and I'm going to do it, because you know why? It's the right thing to do. And that's what we do in government today. We serve the people, we have mutual respect, it's the right thing to do. Thank you very much.
Mr. Fielder?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Quick question for you real quick.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
There had been word with regard to the Ocean County Fire Marshals, which are currently under the Sheriff's Department.
Under the Sheriff.
Moving it out. We happen to like that setup, or it's very well for us. The system works well. Is there any way that that can stay as is?
And again, as you know, Freeholder Kelly is working on it. I told him that. And you know, we're very lucky to have a sheriff like Mike Mastron. You know why? Because he served like many years on a local level. We have a good relationship with him. And I know Lakewood's feelings as far as keeping the fire marshals where it's at the present time. So, you know, you have our support. Okay? Thank you very much. Now,
Joe, thank you very much.
I'm going to show you what a good husband I am. I'm going to make sure my wife, I'm taking her out today. And not only am I going to take her out, I'm going to buy her some dessert. Okay, guy.
Thank you very, very much. Much appreciated, and thank you for those kind words. Our next speaker up, and if you look on your table, you'll see the Jeff Bell literature. Our next speaker is Jeff Bell, who is running for Senate. Now, if you look at the literature, what tweaks your eye immediately is President Reagan. Now, for all of us, a lot of us here, I know when I was growing up, I was in grade school at the time when President Reagan was the president, and to this very day, he's still the president of my mind. You know, it's etched upon everyone's mind from the news clips and whatnot, the indelible impression how he stood up there by Germany, by Berlin, and said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. He was a man who stood behind, it was a legacy. He really was really a legacy. And Jeff Bell worked together under the auspices of President Reagan. And so it's that mindset and that frame of mind that he brings with us. You know, during that era where taxes were cut, the economy was lifted, our nation had tremendous growth. And this is what Mr. Bell will be bringing to Lakewood as well, bringing to the Senate as well. So without further ado, we are pleased and privileged and honored for you to be here this evening, Mr. Bell.
Well, I am running an anti-incumbent campaign, but not with regard to Ocean County.
Thank you.
Ocean County is the epitome of a well-run, Republican-run county that does everything right, it cares about its people, tries to do the right thing, and is enormously resilient, as we proved in Hurricane Sandy, and enormously receptive and responsive to the desires and the needs of the people. And Assemblyman Singer, I also pay tribute to. I know you serve by reputation, and you have a great one. And I was just with your gentleman's county chairman earlier this afternoon, and he is a remarkable man who cleaned my clock in the primary. But, like the Republican loyalist he is, he's going to do everything possible to include our campaign in his overall effort to re-elect the freeholders and the rest of the county officials, as well as the congressman. So, to start from where the mayor started, which is with Ronald Reagan. Barack Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize in his first month in office, before he had done anything. And I think it has helped to shape, I'm not saying it made him do things or not do things, but it was symbolic of his entire administration, which is that saying you were for peace and withholding American help for allies is the key to peace. Ronald Reagan had the least military engagement of any president in the last 40 years. There was one time when he ordered men into combat in the invasion of Grenada. And that was a messy but successful operation. It was, by the way, it happened in 1983, and it was the first time a pro-Soviet communist government had ever lost power anywhere in the world. Think of that now, when the entire Soviet empire disappeared, when every pro-Soviet country, not East Asian communists, but every pro-Soviet power was lost by the incumbents. And that was it. Yes, we were attacked. Yes, there were acts of terrorism in Lebanon and elsewhere. But in terms of American military engagement, there was one engagement with something like 100 men. I could be wrong in the details, more or less killed. Now, why was that? Was it that President Reagan was an isolationist? I don't think so. Was it a matter of he didn't care about our allies, which seems to be a very familiar pattern in the last 5.5 years? No. He was very responsive to his allies. At first, they might not even, the ones in Europe might not even have respected him that much, but they came to. They came to realize that there was more there than met the eye. But above all, I think Ronald Reagan had a peaceful presidency, and he actually won the Cold War, as Margaret Thatcher said at his funeral, without a shot being fired. Because our enemies, our adversaries, never knew what he might do if they crossed it. And to me, the most dramatic example was even before he took office, when he was president-elect and 44 hostages, diplomats, were still being held by the government of Iran. They've been held for well over a year and a half. Jimmy Carter had had endless negotiations. One attempt to try to rescue them, which turned out to be a fiasco, but endless negotiations with the Iranian government. Not once did we come close to resolution. As president-elect, Ronald Reagan was asked a simple question: what is your view of the taking of hostages by Iran? He said 6 words: I consider it an act of war. That's all he said. He didn't say anything else about it. But the second he raised his hand to be inaugurated, those hostages, those diplomats were on a plane returning to the United States. They got the message. They knew what he meant. He didn't have to say, Iran is isolated, the world, public opinion, international opinion condemns them. All he said was, I consider it an act of war. Maybe it's 7 words, sorry. But that's not many words, and yet it sent an eloquent message, and that was the story of his presidency. He was willing to engage. He believed in our values. He believed that our system was the best system in the world. He was loyal to our allies, and other countries knew that, and they did not cross it. That is an amazing contrast to what we have right now. President Obama, I just saw a statement the other day where he referred to Iran. Actually, it was Secretary Kerry. He said, I respectfully request the Islamic Republic of Iran to release the Americans they currently hold. There's a preacher, Iranian American. There's a man, Mr. Levinson, whom everybody knows the Iranians detained years ago, only they don't admit it. But there has been a hostage tape sent out. So we know he's in Iran, but he respectfully requests that the Islamic Republic of Iran release the Americans they are currently holding. And of course, they haven't been released.
East. And of course, we are continuing business as usual, negotiations with a government that is racing to acquire a nuclear weapon that can threaten Israel, threaten Iran's neighbors, and threaten the United States, with delivery systems probably given by North Korea that could enable them to attack this country with EMP capability from a ship that seems to be a tanker coming out into the ocean. And by the way, there's absolutely no reason to cut back on any Coast Guard installation in southern New Jersey or anywhere else at a time when there are multiple threats to this country's mainland. I know that there's a person missing from Lakewood who wandered out into an area that unfriendly people, possibly Hamas, exist. I don't know if that's been resolved yet, but it's very disturbing when things like that happen and the U.S. government treats it as just kind of a pinprick, just a kind of normal happening within the situation of unrest that we have today. I know that the mantra is we don't want boots on the ground, but I would never rule anything out when there is a movement as evil as the Islamic State. That's what they call themselves, by the way. There's no initials, there's no ISIS, there's no ISIL. They call themselves the Islamic State, and they are setting up a caliphate, which they haven't had formally since the dissolution of the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire, over 100 years ago. But their aims are very specific. They do not say, we have only regional interests, we're trying to change the government of Syria or the government of Iraq. They say they are setting up a regime that will attack hostile powers, very much including the United States of America. Not only that, but because of our totally needless and unilateral withdrawal from Iraq in 2011, even though the Iraqi government wanted to keep a residual force in their country that could have provided intelligence to the Iraqi army, the Islamic State has taken weapons away from American-made modern weapons, drone technology, everything else. They have complex weaponry and effective weaponry manufactured in this country that would enable them not only to roll up their opponents in the Middle East, but attack Israel, attack the mainland of the United States. And we are talking about, as the Freeholder director said, a country that announces it has no strategy as a protest against what somebody else had assumed to be true. So they were saying, we are defending ourselves by saying we have no strategy. Then they backtracked and said, well, that was only about the Syrian portion of an Islamic State. They acknowledge no borders. They are killers. And the only thing that we should do, the only thing we should be thinking about is how do we kill the killers before they come here and before they do any more harm, homicidal harm that they are not only capable of doing, not only that they have done, but they are announcing that they are continuing to do, that they are going to eliminate minorities, Christians and others Christians have been living in these areas for 2,000 years. Jews have been living in these areas for 3,500 years, and they are being eradicated. It is a genocidal enemy, and if we do not attack them, we are looking to harvest a harvest of shame and horror, potential horror for the United States. Because what happens in one area influences what happens everywhere else. China is forcibly taking territory that were recognized dozens of years ago as belonging to other countries. Russia has swallowed Crimea, and they are in intermittent warfare with Ukraine. Ukraine didn't ask for any American boots on the ground. They asked for military aid. President Obama so far has sent them K rations. That's what he has sent them in response to their plea for just military aid so they can defend themselves. Then the Ukrainian army counterattacks against the so-called Russian separatists, who are really mostly Russian soldiers. He started making progress Putin sends more brazenly than he ever did before Russian military forces in to rally to their defense. And now we have another ceasefire, and the United States and the European Union have encouraged the Ukrainian president to accept the ceasefire and pull back. So we know that that won't last. We know that Putin will keep coming, and President Obama will continue to say this is only a regional fight, and we have no dog in that hunt. And it simply encourages the worst players in international life to continue destroying innocent people and endangering the interests of the United States. If I thought President Obama, I mean Jimmy Carter, when the Russians invaded Afghanistan, this is a man who at Notre Dame University had given a speech saying we Americans have an inordinate fear of communism. In 1977 he said that. At least when the Soviet Union, for the first time, other than World War II, went outside their borders, sent the Red Army outside their borders to overthrow, execute a president, and occupy a foreign country outside the Warsaw Pact. At least Carter said, I was wrong about this. He canceled our participation in the Olympics. He prohibited further wheat sales to the Soviet Union. He took concrete steps. He didn't know how to deter them. He was an unsuccessful president, but I will at least say that he learned from his mistakes and tried to correct the situation toward the end of his presidency. Barack Obama shows absolutely no sign of being capable of that. He is determined to have a peace agreement with Iran. He will nominally say that Iran is not interested in nuclear weapons. They say that now. They say they're not interested in nuclear weapons, and these centrifuges are whirling around, and they have secret installations that have been discovered that they don't let the UN inspectors see. Iran is going to have nuclear weapons, and Barack Obama, if the Iranians will simply give him the merest fig leaf, they are going to have an agreement. And that is the motivation behind so much of his passivity in the Middle East, is that he is more interested in having a condominium, a détente, with our worst enemies than he is in helping our allies. The other day I read a news report that said he had rage toward Israel for Israel's attack on Hamas and the nature of what they were doing, closing up the tunnels, that it was way beyond what needed to be done to protect Israel. Rage toward Israel? And we receive videotape of Americans' heads being cut off by ISIS, for whom he seems to have a containment policy. And as long as they do their evil in Syria, they will have no U.S. attacks, at least under present policy. We can only bomb them when they're in Iraq, not when they're in Syria. So that's who he has rage against. This is a deeply anti-Israel, and I believe in many ways an anti-Semitic administration. They probably don't think they're that, but all of their actions not only elicit that, evince that quality, but they are setting an example to Western Europe that is causing the tremendous upsurge in anti-Semitic conditions. Yes, many of them are carried out by Muslim minorities in Western Europe, but they're being either abetted or ignored by the governments of those countries, for whom the Islamic vote is an increasingly powerful aspect of their politics. So that is what we face. But having said all of that, and I could go into my main campaign theme, which is the bleakness of the economy and the fact that the Federal Reserve is sitting on the economy, sitting on savers who can't get any interest out of their savings, and they are sitting on small business, which by denying them the lines of credit that they need to expand and hire. I could go into all of the bleakness that this administration and the Democratic Senate led by Harry Reid has caused. But I will also say that there was a lot of this feeling in the late 1970s when I was working with Ronald Reagan, and he was preparing his races for president, first in 1976 and then in 1980. I was a Reagan delegate from the state, from the 4th Congressional District in 1980. In other words, it was Chris Smith's district. He won it that year against Frank Thompson, the Democratic incumbent, who was convicted in abscond. And so I was in the Reagan movement. And one of the attacks on Reagan is that he's living out a Hollywood dream. That this idea that we're not really running out of resources, which the Club of Rome had said. We don't have to do with less. We don't have to get used to slower growth and higher inflation into the indefinite future. The American people have not changed. They're capable of turning things around. We are capable, if a Republican president with the right ideas is elected in 2016, we are capable of turning around the situation in the Middle East far faster than anyone can imagine, if we have the right attitude. I am very explicit. I know Republicans want to say, well, everything's going wrong, but I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. There's a temptation to just hope that the mistakes of the Obama administration will be enough to elect Republicans, because people have to have something to vote against. That's helping me right now, and I think it will help Republicans in 2014. That's why I think, even though I'm not well enough known to win, that my polls have been quite good in recent months, because people are looking for a way to vote against it. But unless we say what we are for, I am for bombing ISIS. I am for bombing them in Iraq and Syria. And if that doesn't work, we have to look at other options. But I think it will work. The little bombing, the limited bombing that the administration has done up to now has turned them back from the Kurdish gray areas and from a major dam. I have no doubt that we should be bombing ISIS wherever we know that they are. This is not a terrorist movement where people are posing as peaceful protesters or women, sending women with suicide bombs. This is a military movement. We know where they are. As bad as the Iraqi government's intelligence got because of Obama's unnecessary withdrawal, we have thousands of men in there, and we have located them. We know where their formations are, and it is a scandal that we are not bombing them out of existence everywhere that we know they are. I am willing to say that. If that makes me pro-war, let somebody say why I'm wrong. Let somebody say why killing the worst killers in the world is not a key precondition to real peace in the Middle East. And I think a president, the next president of the United States, if he has his head screwed on right the way Ronald Reagan did, can turn the economy around as he did quicker than people expect, can turn the Middle East around, can help the people of Ukraine to successfully roll back the Russian imperialist invaders, help the free peoples of East Asia to resist Chinese aggression, which has increased as Obama has shown less and less interest in doing anything about it. The American people have not changed. We are the most productive workers in the world. We have the most creative people in the world. We have the most persistence. We have the most ingenuity. That has not changed. It's the government's misguided policies that are sitting on the American economy, and as soon as they are lifted, as soon as they are changed, as soon as we have an honest money that levels the playing field for everybody, because it's a money that holds its value into the indefinite future, the American people will respond, and we will once again be the most dynamic economy and the most dynamic country in the world, bar none. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from Mr. Bell, Jeff Bell. Thank you very much for coming this evening. We truly appreciate your coming. I'm so thankful you're here this evening. I'd like to give you my Lakewood Township lapel pin. Wear it in pride while you're here in Lakewood. Thank you so much.